So what we're going to be doing is, just to get it once we start going, is we're going to be using our studio, and we're actually been making use of the two Excel spreadsheets, the HS High School Suicide spreadsheet and the Titanic spreadsheet. So you might want to take a moment to download those spreadsheets onto your computer, onto your own laptop, desktop, wherever you want. In addition, in the same place as those two spreadsheets, there is a file that has a set of notes for what we're going to be doing for today. So you might want to download that Word document as well. So three things: the two Excel spreadsheets and a set of notes. Oh, and the notes are called Notes from Our Workshop. So notes from our workshop, the Titanic Dataset, and the HS Suicide Dataset. I guess I'll take a second to reintroduce myself. My name is Stephen Hayduk. I'm a professor of psychology here at Southwesleyan. As I said last time, my background is in human growth development, especially development of cognition and attention. That leads into an interest in artificial intelligence and data analytics, which is why I guess I'm here today. I'll note, by the way, that I tend to be fairly relaxed and easygoing with regard to exchange of information, stuff like that. So if you do have any questions or comments, no verbal abuse, questions or comments at any time, please feel free to share those. And if you have questions, I'll come around and see if I can help you with our studio, et cetera, et cetera. I'll note in that regard that I guess we have an hour now, 9 to 10, then we have a 15-minute break, then we have an hour and 15 minutes, which brings us to lunchtime, then we have an hour for lunch, and then we're back here to do more of this. Two things. Number one, I will intend to eat my lunch in here, so if you do have any questions or something like that during lunch period, or if you want to work on something afterwards, let me know, and I'll be here to do that. And number two, I'll try to make it as bearable as possible.
Woohoo! Thank you. Yes.
Now, since everybody here is an educator, we're all aware of the principle that you learn best by doing it. So even though I have a PowerPoint that only has 4 slides, I want to do a quick introduction, and then we're actually getting to do the talk. Okay, so let me just point out that R and R Studio are, for our purposes, a combined package. R is a statistical programming language. You can actually do a whole set of computer programming if you're that type of thing. It will allow you to do those types of things. That allows individuals, organizations to use R for organizing information, organizing data, and analyzing it, even if you have millions of points of data. So as an example, imagine if you're Amazon. How many people here shop on Amazon at one point in time? Okay, so you now see how Amazon works, and you recognize that there are millions of people shopping online on Amazon on an hourly basis. So you take a 24-hour cycle, you could easily have hundreds of millions of records of individuals who have looked for things or bought things. How do you make sense of that information? So R, among other statistical packages, are designed to do that. R is used not only for organizing data, for analyzing data, including pretty massive data sets. It's also used for data visualization, to be able to present things a little more effectively. We're visual creatures, so graphs, figures, those types of things are often useful to us. R has a whole set of techniques for that and for communicating information. So whether we talk about plots of these types of things, plots of over a period of time, maps of different materials, or looking at data like language, word clouds and stuff. R has capabilities for all those types of things, plus a lot more. So it is designed to handle numerical data, like the type of things that we're going to look at when we look at the Titanic Dataset. It's designed to handle qualitative data, words or text. So for those of you who are on social media, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, et cetera, all those exchanges, all those texts, all those posts, all those blogs, R actually has facilities to organize and analyze those types of things. And in addition, it has dozens of specialized uses. People, including yourselves, can actually write additional packages to use in R. So it can be used for modeling different types of data. It's used for finance and commerce, for genetics, for machine learning and artificial intelligence. R has been used for all those types of things. It's a very large, very comprehensive, very powerful package. And that's actually some of the companies that actually make use of R. You'll recognize Facebook, Google, Mozilla, Firefox. They all make use of R. Merck and Novartis, you'll recognize as pharmaceutical companies. Thomas Cook, Financial, Orbitz. All those different companies make use of the same package that we're going to be looking at. So just to know, it's a very powerful, very effective package. It's generally regarded as having sometimes a steep learning curve. If I may use an analogy, a vehicle analogy, if you take the four vehicles up on the screen and you merge them into one, you've all seen Transformers, you know what that's R in terms of what it can do. What I intend for us to do today is basically want to take R out for a little bit of spin in our neighborhood, maybe run to the grocery store for some milk and bread, but that's basically what we're going to work on doing. It's the basics of animal. So we're actually going to start off by importing some data, because if you're going to do a data analytics, it is useful to actually have some data to analyze. And that's going to be the two Excel spreadsheets. And then we're going to take a look at our studio, and then we're going to look at some basic commands, basic analyses, and some basic graphs, figures, and plots and all. I figure that's going to take us a couple of hours, we'll see. Okay, let me just check. As I said, I'm very easy going, so if anybody has any questions, the other side of things is I'm also going to ask very group. Does anybody have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay, perfect.
Did we turn off the satellites?
So yeah.
Did you turn off the satellite? Or you turn off the screen?
Unfortunately, there's one light switch, so if someone goes back and turn off all the overhead lights.
Yeah.
Please. Okay, so first of all, everybody has R in our studio. If you have not already done so, go ahead and open up our studio. And when you open up our studio, I'm assuming that everybody has something that looks vaguely like what's on the screen. Vaguely, okay. I'm gonna step around and look at a couple of those that are.
This is not worth to be a doctor. And when I go to it, there's a hard ideas. I know my kids take it. And there it goes. Oh, it's just a blue bar. With the white bar. That's not mine. That one on one of the other pages. That's nice. That's good stuff. Look at that. When you go there, this is but it seems like so. Thanks. Okay. I'm like, I think that one has I have to see several times. But I mean, oh, this is like might want to use, yeah.
Okay, let me just check. Does anybody else have any questions about our studio or our, everybody has sort of stuff that has something that looks like that?
Yeah. It's reminding me that I did
Okay. If everybody is at the same place where we have something that looks like that, where you have the console on the left-hand side, and there's something that goes to the other side, we're all roughly in the same location. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to actually do is work on taking the data that you downloaded, the two Excel spreadsheets, and getting them into R. I will note in that regard, by the way, that once you've done that, recognize that you would be in a situation when you're working on collecting your doctoral data, especially if you're getting numerical data, doing surveys or grades or those types of things, you could put those into an Excel spreadsheet. In fact, I recommend that. And then just import that into R and do your analysis there. Okay. So with R Studio has a couple of different ways to import data. The way the basic package of R works is you type in commands. Okay, that's the slow and awkward and tedious way, so we're not going to do it that way. R Studio actually has about 2 or 3 places that you can go to and get R Studio to write all the commands for you to import the data, which makes things a lot easier. So under R Studio, if you go to the File menu, you'll see that halfway down it says Import Dataset. And if you scroll down to Import Dataset, it'll give you about half a dozen different options. You can import text data sets, you can import Excel spreadsheets, which is what we're going to do. You can import data sets from other statistical packages. SPSS, SAS, and STATA are all other professional statistical packages as well. Commercial, each of those, by the way, SPS, SAS, STATA, they probably cost $1,000 or $2 each. R is free, so you can see what we're using R. So since we're going to import a couple of Excel spreadsheets, go to Edit, go to Import Data Set, and then click on Excel.
Supporting data sets. I need
Unable to establish.
Okay. Question over there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Okay, and then it went straight to.
If you've gone to this window right here, this spot right here, file URL, that's going to be the file you're looking for. You can just use the browse button and just do a regular search on your laptop for your Excel spreadsheet. If you know where it is, track it down, and that takes care of 90% of it right there.
Which one?
I'm going to eventually get you to do both, so it doesn't matter which one you start with. We're going to be using the Titanic Dataset a little bit more than the high school suicide dataset, but we will be using both. So go ahead and start working on that. Once you've browsed and you've got the file in here, you can actually just leave everything the way it is and just say import. So identify the data set, locate it, do import, and that basically will cover it. And then question.
I need to petition the class. Does anyone have a flash drive I can borrow for just a moment to transfer some Google data? Oh, well, praise the Lord, you'll get asked.
Yes, go to Residency.
I wish to do it, but it's an update to Because you're here today, she saw.
That's
She
exactly.
saw it. So I've got the Titanic. I missed the direction. Do we get import after we've got one of them in there? Okay, and can I go ahead and do the second one, or should I just do one at a time?
If you are able to go ahead and import both data sets, because we're making use of it.
All right, so now we go back to import data set. So can we do the other one?
To eject this I'll show you You were just wondering.
Oh, yeah. Did they? Password, yeah, should be. That's a great question. Several places, because it's all on their end. It's not.
So many unique passwords.
Yeah. Is there a chance the caps lock is on or anything?
Nope.
That unfortunately, I wish we had some even.
So this is a test that you love after the changes. And when I said, remember initially, it didn't show up. I've never been able to do this.
Really?
Okay, so let me just check. Everybody has got to the point of having imported the two Excel spreadsheets in your.
Not yet, I'm still loading.
For those of you who have imported them, you'll have something that looks like this, where you'll have the name of the two data sets in the upper right-hand corner, and then you'll actually have a picture of one of the data sets right there.
Yes.
And then you'll also have a whole list of commands on the side there. What you did using the file menu and the import data set, remember I said that you could type all the commands in, R automatically does that. So those are actually the commands that R used to import your data set into R. You don't need to worry about writing it down, because R is actually also recording all the commands that you put into it. I'm going to show you that in a second. Okay, so since on the whole, generally speaking, we have the data sets imported, what I want to do then is just take a little bit of a tour through our studio so you can see what's there, and you can see a little bit of what we're going to be doing or what you can do. First thing I'll note, this actually on the set of notes that you have, this is going to be on some of the going to be on the notes that you have. The lower left-hand corner here, the console, that's where we're going to be doing most of our work. And that's where you're going to be basically typing in almost all your commands. Because once we've imported the data, then we actually, generally speaking, have to actually type the commands in to do the analyses inside. You notice in my case that it's already pretty full, and you're going to be in the same situation pretty quickly if you weren't already. So let me give you the first command. If you press the control button and the L button, it clears the console so you actually have more space.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes, there's two ways to do it. Number one, if you press control L, or if you prefer, if you go to the edit menu, right at the bottom there's control L, clear console. So go to the edit menu right at the bottom, you can clear the console, which brings the prompt back up to the top, which gives you a little more space to run. Right above it, you'll see the data sets, a small portion of the data sets you have. I have the Titanic data set up front first. You can actually see, click on the high school suicide data set as well. And we're going to look at that a little bit more in just a second. But that actually just shows you a view of the data set so you can see what's there. For the Titanic data set, in this case, what you'll see is there's a 8 columns. First one is listed as name. Second one is sex or gender, age category is AMS, adult, minor, or senior. So it's sort of the same information as age. There is survived, and values of 0 and 1. Note that actually doesn't mean 0 and 1. 0 means no, and 1 means yes. So the ones with 1, they're the ones who live. The zeros die. P class is passenger class. First, second, and third class.
This might be a really stupid question, but if you put in and Y into that, it wouldn't calculate, it's not a number. It first survived. If you put the letter, when you did it in your Excel, does everything need to have a numerical value?
No, it does not.
Okay. So why did you choose 0 and 1 versus N and Y?
There, it is the case that in some statistical packages, they do, this includes R, they do work better with numerical values rather than letter L's.
Okay.
So rather than saying yes, no, and why, or die, survive.
So we just need to be thinking like that. when
Yes.
we're- Okay.
I'll note, by the way, that's a pretty common process. If you get your own data sets, and you can actually use for your discussion, it's not unusual for some of those categorical values like gender, particular, instead of being male and female, being coded as 0 and 1 or 1 and 2. So that's a very common practice. Just be aware that process is called coding, and it's not unusual.
Okay.
Most data sets, these don't. Most data sets will also have something called a code book, which actually allows you to interpret what's going on. And in fact, when we get to back here after lunch, you're actually going to have a chance to do some Microsoft. You'll be okay with it by that time. So yes, so survive 0 and 1, yes, no, and yes. Pass your class, first class, second class, third class. SIB, SP, siblings present. How many brothers and sisters there were? We'll talk about that in a second. And then fair US is how much the people paid back in 1912 to buy a ticket on the Titanic. If you want a rough comparison, I take the number and multiply it by 25 to get what the equivalent would be today.
I just have a quick question back to the survive data where we use 0 and 1. Is that like the same thing as like binary got 1 and off? So like 0 being off, 1 being on, so 0 being back, 1 being on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, my husband's a network person, and he talks a lot of binary code, so I was like, I feel like that's binary code.
Yes, that is.
Okay.
Let me look at one other thing as well. It's the same section that we were just looking at. I'm actually going to open it up a little bit more. Note, by the way, that in that little sort of section that we're looking at here, you'll see that each of the different column names has a couple of little up and down triangles with it. That actually allows you to sort the data set by that column. So if I were to ask you, for example, how old was the youngest person on the Titanic? If you go to age and click on the little arrow, it'll actually tell you. It'll actually sort it from the lowest value to the highest value. And if you click it again, it'll reverse it. So the youngest person on the Titanic, if you click on age and click the little arrows, it should say that the youngest person on the Titanic was 0.1667 years, 2 months old. If you actually go a little bit further, you'll see that this person right here is 1 year old. They actually, or 2 months old, they survived. Interestingly enough, that person who survived when they were 2 months old, they were the last living survivor of the Titanic. They died several years ago. Question?
I'm sorry.
Come around.
Yeah, it finally said it would import it, but all I'm getting, I mean, this is all it did.
Yeah. Maybe. So far, it doesn't look like it's too bad,
oldest person in the Titanic?
80.
80, okay. Note that they survived as well. The other thing I'll just note, we do a couple other analyses the same way. Siblings present. Okay, the lowest value was 0. There were some people who didn't have siblings. What's the biggest family that was on the Titanic? Go to siblings present and look at the largest value. And you should find a value of 8. There was a family with 9 siblings, brothers and sisters. If you look at the survived values, one of them 0s and 1, you see that most of them did not survive. And the last element will get you to look at fares, US 1912. What was the cheapest price? Free, yes. Some people, it didn't cost them anything to get them. Well,
They're
it
probably
cost them
working.
their lives, but it didn't cost them anything of money in terms of Titanic. What was the most expensive fare on the Titanic?
$25,494.
$2,500, which nowadays is roughly just over $60,000. No, by the way, that when you look at the features they spent $2,500 to get on the Titanic, every one of them survived. Okay, so you have a data set, you have a chance to see what the data look like and to even do a little bit of sorting to get some ideas of the minimum, maximum, and lowest, highest values. And that sort of gives you a good picture of what the data set looks like. Let me just sort of continue the tour of our studio by pointing out the other windows or panes. Off on the right-hand side here, you'll actually see a list of your 2 data sets. And each one of them, it gives you 2 pieces of information. And number 1, the number of variables. Okay. Typically in data analysis, each column is a variable. So things like age or gender or fare, that's one variable or that's one column. So columns are the number of variables, and then the other number, observations, that's the number of rows. And in this case, we have, for the Titanic value, we have 1,309 observations, which basically means 1,309 rows, which means 1,309 people. So each row in the Titanic data set is one passenger of the Titanic. So if I were to just take a look at this first, the person, the woman who was 2 months old, her name was Miss Elizabeth Gladys Movina Dean. She was 2 months old, and I assume that her parents paid $100.20 to get her on. She was third-class passenger with 1 sibling. So 1 row is 1 person. Note for the high school suicide set, we actually click and look at that one. You have the same setup. You have each column is a variable, but in this case, each row is 1 high school. So it's not a person, it's a high school. And this is actually from a survey of suicide prevention strategies used by South Carolina high schools. So you can see that at the time at Abbeville High, had 600 enrolled, 2 counselors. They knew of 1 suicide or attempted suicide, and then there's some discussion about their programs and such. What programs they're using, which ones they aren't using, et cetera, et cetera.
Is this actual data?
Yes, this is actual data from around 1999, 2000, so it's a little older. But it is actually from a survey that an honor student funded. Note, by the way, that this data has not been published, so if anything, if anybody's interested in high school suicide programs, that's a topic that you could use. If you do want to do that, let me know and you can have access to this data. Okay, so in both cases you have the same basic setup. Each row or observation is 1 unit, 1 person, 1 high school, 1 state, depending on what you're looking at. And each column is 1 variable given. That's sort of the standard way of setting up data set. And you'll see basic information about the size of the data set then off to the right. 153 high schools, 18 variables, 1,309 passengers, 8 variables. That's the environment pane right there. If you click on history, you'll see a whole bunch of commands in there. I'll have more commands in there than you will, because remember I said that RStudio keeps track of all the commands? That's where it's doing. It actually is saving those onto a file on your computer as well. So you can close it down, all that information will be saved, and you can access it again later on. The next panel on RStudio, the connections, you don't need to, you can click on it, you don't need to worry about it, you can ignore it for now. Connections has to do with using R to access databases. So if your school, and probably your a school system has a database track of faculty, students and such, you can actually use R to access that information.
So like, if we needed to look at our school maps, or could we get on like NWEA through that? Or
There are a couple ways you can do that, yes. Okay, so connection is generally speaking used for accessing databases. That will depend entirely upon what you're going to do your doctoral dissertation. We're not going to look at that today because that gets into more advanced stuff. So history and environment.
Does it matter that we only have 17 variables and you have 18 suicides?
No. Okay, it means probably that I'm using an older version of the data set which has a little bit more information, and I got rid of it for anything else. Last panel, be aware of the lower right-hand corner. Let me just note, for most of you, it's already set up on files. Files is basically a list of what's available in what R calls your working directory. Let me just check. How many of you have set up a folder on your computer for your doctoral work? Okay, and you basically put all your doctoral work, you're probably eventually going to have a folder in there for your dissertation, et cetera, if you don't already. Okay, that's your working directory for your dissertation. RStudio and most other packages do the same thing. They have a preferred place where they store everything. And that shows you what's in there. So I have more material in there because I do more materials are. So I probably have more files in there, but that's what that files tab indicates is it's looking at what it's identified as your working directory for a certain thing. And that's where it's storing information. That's where it's going to look for information. That's where it's going to save information.
Can you tell it where you want to save information? Like, because I like to have mine stored on a cloud.
Yes,
So if I can,
you
my computer
can.
dies, I don't lose everything.
You can. Generally speaking, it's more comfortable with saving things onto hard drives, but you can actually set up to save onto the cloud as well. Let's actually do a couple of commands then. Let's just see where it's located. If you will do the first command, I'm going to do this one right here, get WD with parentheses. So in the console in the lower left-hand corner right here, if you'll type in the words get WD, which basically stands for get working directory, that tells RStudio where do you have a working directory set up, and then you'll have to add the parentheses at the end. And it is, in my case, it's located C drive, users, et cetera, a whole long list there. That's where my working directory is. So that gets it. You can also use the command, just change get to set working directory, set WD, and that will actually allow you to set it to wherever you would like. But in the notes, it also says you don't have to type the command in and then type in all the address like you see, the link. You actually can, if I remember correctly, go under the Tools menu, global options, and that will give you an option to do the same thing. So you don't necessarily need to know the command. You can actually go to Tools, global options, Once it opens. And in the options, one of the choices is to browse and choose your own working directory. So if you want to move your working directory, if you want to actually, for example, you can move to where your data for your doctoral dissertation is going to be and make that sort of a standard default directory, and it will save everything in there. If you want to do that, what you would do is you could use a set WD command, or if you go to the tools menu, the second one from the right, and under tools, you'll see the command right at the bottom, global options. If you click on global options, it will bring you to the options window, and that's where you can play around and change how R looks and all that type of thing. But you'll see right on the front page, general, the second sort of window right here is default working directory. And you can browse and you can pick whatever directory or whatever folder you want to use for your directory, and R will learn or will know then to look there for material and to save everything like your history and workspace there.
And the other option to this is just to import your Excel.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, what I actually do is with my working directory, I just put my Excel worksheets and put them in my working directory, so I have everything together.
So it'll pull all of those Excel.
Well, it will import data from anywhere, but if you want a common location for everything, a working directory, that's all. That's what this basically is. That's what it allows you to do.
And if you have several Excel sheets in this working directory, will it combine all of that data into one?
It will treat each worksheet separately. Or,
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
having said that, there are commands that will allow you to combine everything if you want to. That's again, that's the advanced side.
Yeah, I think I need to keep it paper.
Okay, so just finishing off our studio, you have files. If you go to the next one, plots, you should see absolutely nothing. Because that's where it does its graphics. And we haven't done any graphics yet, so you don't see anything there. But when we start doing graphics, that's where they will appear. Packages is basically, R is built on a bunch of small little packages, and this is a list of packages that are installed. You can actually use this area to upgrade them, install additional ones if you're interested in doing that. That's the packages pane, upgrade, install, etc., etc. The last one I wanted to mention is help. If you want resources for learning more about R in our studio, that's a really good place to start. And viewer, the last one we're not going to worry about. So that's basically a quick tour of our studio. You have your console, lower left, the data, environment, and then several other things down on the lower right. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Then I'm going to take my data and shrink it a little bit so I have more space in my console. And let's go ahead and enter a couple of additional commands here. We've done one, get working directory. Okay. Let's do one other one for R as well. And this next command that I would like you to use is this one right here, citation. So just type in the word citation, but parentheses at the end. And that gives you the citation for the version of R that you're using. To put it another way, you now have possibly your first reference for your dissertation. Because generally speaking nowadays, the expectation or standard in reporting analyses and such is that you indicate what statistical package you use. So you type in citation, it will give you a whole, right here, R14, 2019, it's a description of it. You can cut and paste that into your references page. And you have your first reference perhaps. Okay, now we're going to take a little bit of a tour of R. We have just a couple of minutes left before we take a break. We're going to start to look at the Titanic Dataset. Then we'll take a break and we'll continue looking at the Titanic Dataset. Okay, so for the Titanic Dataset, the first we're going to do is we're going to get a little more information about the dataset itself. Okay, so we're not doing an analysis, we're just sort of getting an overview of the dataset. So for the first command, I'm going to get you to type in the letters DIM, which stands for dimensions. Then within the parentheses, I'll get you to type in the word, I'll get you to type in the name of the data set, which is Titanic. It has to be exact, so Titanic has a capital T.
Okay, ours has this long, like, Titanic. Ours doesn't just say Titanic, it says like Titanic data underscore SR1 underscore. Do we need to change that?
Did you type in TNT at the very least?
Yeah.
It might came up, it came up for Titanic. Yeah, so you put E, I.
I mean, it brought it up. Well, I know it's not very true, but that's what it said. Do you have to put this in? What the file saved Would that work?
Yeah. I did not get what you got. Mine came up. Like, on its own. I just dug it in. I got 422, and then I like when you start spelling 422.
Did you start trying to start? I think if it don't actually put anything, it's not populated. Yeah, let the long ones.
I mean, if I just need to save it, we'll save it differently, that is.
Taking of it, I
Does anybody else have any questions, or if you want me to take care of
Can
anything?
you come, I don't mind coming to you. It should get words now to follow along, I'm just letting you know that they won't do it. I don't like it. I just happened to notice though. I got two windows, like, I was like, let's come up with another, and then I moved them up in here, and I was like, wait a minute, what is that? I clicked there. And so that, I get that. But it's working. It wasn't matched. And it gives you the 1309.
Okay, if you were able to click or put in the command DIM dimensions and then the name of your data set, you should end up with something that looks like, down here you can't see it, it says 1309 and 8.
Yeah.
So when you click or when you enter the command dimension, you're basically asking R for the dimensions of the data set. So it tells you it has this many variables, 8, and this many rows. Now you already know that because it's up here as well. But you'll get the idea that how R works. You type it in the command, it will give you the response. And let's do one other one as well. STR for structure, STR, and then the same name of the data set. And the STR command is short for structure, and it basically gives you the setup, the structure of your data set. So it says, for example, that you have a variable, a column called name, and it actually gives some examples, gender, examples, age, examples. You'll note that after the name of each variable, you'll see the letter CHR or NUM. NUM is a numerical variable. R is treating it as a number, CHR is character, that's letters. So it actually tells you each variable, whether it's counting each variable as numbers or letters, and it'll also tell you some example values.
Notice that, but mine doesn't have figures, it stops with siblings. I've tried it twice.
No, this would just tell you what it's saying.
Yeah, I'm saying like good.
Okay, let me just check. We tried, we've done a tour of our studio, we've imported the data sets, and we tried at least a couple of commands, citation, working directory, dimensions, DIM, and structure, STR. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
I still cannot import that, so I'll need your help.
Okay. I think that this is a good place to take a break. Probably a much needed break at this point, and I'll come around and answer questions if you have questions. So 15 minutes, around quarter out, we'll come back here and continue.
We have familiar, we have become one with our studio. I at least am okay opening it up and when I'm looking at it. I know which one I'm supposed to begin. I did.